what's his name, Cummings.
Stuart
Cummings. He said, Paul O'Brien, he said, in the Wigan game...
I'm not sure Paul will take that as a compliment, but all right.
Well, I think he should. The touch judge close to the play is normally watching the ball. The touch judge further away is watching for offside, so that's why they deferred judgment on the kick that was ruled out to the far touch judge, which... but that's answered that. So thanks for that, Paul.
Yeah. Darren Garner got in touch. What's this about?
Ted Fest.
Oh, this is on the back of SLP Recommends.
Yes, in Ireland, there's a festival celebrating Father Ted each year.
Quite right.
So he said it's an institution over there. He also got in touch because he went viral this week. I don't know if you caught this on our email.
I didn't know he'd gone viral. I saw his email about cycling and I just thought, I don't really know a lot about cycling. I've got some fairly shabby opinions, really, so I'm probably not the best one to contribute.
Well, basically, him and his mate were caused quite a storm. Some guy took a picture of them whilst he was following them in his car because he was pissed off that they were riding two abreast.
Okay.
So he couldn't get past them, but he could get past them on a straight if he wanted to.
Right.
But basically, caused a bit of a stir. This got put on the Garda Facebook feed. And
that's the Irish police force.
And made it read like the Irish police force were saying that sort of thing really pisses them off, which was a bit weird. But then, everyone else jumps on board, every other driver who is ignorant to the fact that cyclists are far less secure and safe in their fucking environment on the road than you are in your car, mister. And also, once you've got past them, you can get to where you're going pretty fast still.
Yeah.
Don't worry about being behind them for a minute or two on a bendy road. But basically, he was asking for our opinion. The picture, the still shot he showed, if you go on the Garda Police Facebook page, people, you might find it.
Right.
They're two abreast on what looks to me like a straight that's approaching a closed bend.
Okay.
I mean...
Is it just Darren and his mate?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He was explaining they ride two abreast to make sure cars approaching from behind go slowly when they get to them, so then they don't just whiz past them dead fast. I was saying to Darren, I always thought, though, that once they've got to behind you, you fall in.
Yeah.
And then they can get past you. So then, no one gets too pissed off at the same... So then they don't do anything... Because apparently the car behind the car that was taking a photo went round and swore abuse and
surely the bigger issue is that your man with the camera felt it was alright to start doing this whilst he was driving.
Well, there was a lot wrong with the situation, and Darren and his mate were not the biggest issue in safety-wise for people in that. But check that out. It's been a bit of a sensation in the
cycling community.
Backwaters.
Look at that, he pointed us in the right direction of Ted Fest too, so thank you, Darren.
Another one from Paul Michael Craig. He said, "Surely the Bradford women's team would be better known as the Cows."
Yeah, I'll let you present that idea to them, Paul.
The Bradford Cows.
And lasses can call themselves what they want for me.
Brendan Loftus at BP Loftus said, "A great listen, lads, and a fantastic episode this week in This Is Not This Week in League."
This week in This Is Not Week in... Yeah, This Is Not This Week in League.
No.
Maybe we could call that... Maybe we should change the name of the podcast to This Is Not This Week in League. This week in This Is Not This Week in League.
Or we just
stick with Super League Pod?
Yeah.
All right then.
RLDS, they said, "Good to hear that the Super League Pod will be following the progress of Brentwood RL, at Brentwood RL is the Twitter handle for the Brentwood Eels, all year, #RLDS.
Yeah, that's great stuff, and we've got some information on those chaps coming up later in the show, haven't we?
Yeah, about their performance in the London Nines event this weekend, so look forward to that towards the back end of the results section, guys.
Yes, okay. A chap called Harrison Spence got in touch with us, and will you be covering the NRL results each week? Well, yes, we will, although in none of the detail that you'd get on This Week in League, but we'll certainly be... We tend to focus on the British players.
Yeah, we do the results and then throw in a little line about what the Brit performers have done, and that will come just before the Brentwood Eels.
There you go. Okay, and who was the last person to get in touch with us?
Al Witz, he said, "So, the new episode of Super League Pod is out. I wonder what big news will break today or tomorrow. #happens every week."
Yeah, alright, Al, cheers.
To be honest, if you like your news old and stale and overly opinionated, you're in the right place.
But
we've got plenty to talk about this week.
We've got plenty to talk about this week, and actually, this is a good night of the week to do the podcast, because if we did it sort of Tuesday, Wednesday...
There's always news every day.
There would be a lag, wouldn't there? And it would kind of feel a bit old in terms of the games that we review and stuff.
I don't think it was a criticism from Al, I think it was just a joke. But
I want to take some of the wind out of yourself by taking it seriously.
But in terms of when we do the show, it's Rugby League fans. I want there to be a big breaking news story every single day that puts us in the news chat.
Just off the subject ever so slightly, because of what I just remembered, I started watching Mid Morning Matters.
Right.
Oh my God! I watched the I watched the second and third ones last night, and the one of the ones is where the reformed criminal comes in, and he's like, "Yeah, well, you know as well as I do that when you get that extra Kit Kat, I just wanted those 5 chocolate fingers inside me." It was in bits, absolute bits. So yeah, it's all good stuff.
I jumped ahead as well. I couldn't resist. I got onto the Skybox sets and downloaded a couple and got.
Oh, so I've only got up to 3 yet, but we'll see. Okay, my poll then, Mark. That was. It became one of the most effective polls I've whipped out.
Yeah, certainly
so
one of the least divisive in terms of the results.
Yeah,
but
it did provoke
definitely quite a lot of reaction. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is on the back of the story that there were calls for tackling to be banned in compulsory school rugby. So the question that we asked was, should tackling be banned in school rugby? And perhaps not surprisingly, given the demographic to which we broadcast, the vast majority of you said no. 95% of people said no, shouldn't be banned in school rugby, and 5% of you therefore said that yes, it should. Obviously, I think if you ask this question to the public in a wider sense, you'd get a closer split of opinion. But it did get us. It got us all talking, didn't it? And
definitely,
we got a lot of feedback from listeners, and people started doing some research of their own, didn't they?
We got absolutely tons, and then we'll go through some views, and we'll finish off with Dr. Bob's. Detailed look into it. He had a bit of look into some academic journals and papers on the subject that he could find, and threw down some things about that. So before we get into everyone else's far more rounded views than we've got, what say you?
Do you know what? I've gone back and forward on this, but not for the reason, not from a safety point of view, but more from a creativity point of view. I'm certain this will have been something that Darren will have got hold of. I do like the idea of protecting creative players and trying to nurture them, and perhaps with full contact, full tackle rugby that is prevented somehow. But then they don't do it in Australia, and they create plenty of creative players. So,
but in Australia, I think in the younger age groups, there's a period, maybe not in schools, but there's a and maybe not everywhere.
Yeah.
But there's a part of it that's size plays against size.
Yes.
Maybe within age groups they separate teams by size and stuff, I think.
The solution I came to with this was sort of inspired a little bit by what you see in the NFL when they train. So your quarterbacks and people like that, they often wear red jerseys, don't they, to say hands off. So if you're if you've got your prop forwards and your forwards and stuff like that, let them tackle each other, let them go at it, but let's protect the kids that the coaches recognise as potentially the skill players, and give them the tag thing, and maybe try and nurture them that way whilst they're young, and then as they get older get them used to contact, so that they've had a chance to develop a more basic, a better foundational skill set. Do you see what I mean?
I see what you mean, yeah. So where have you landed then on your flip-flopping?
No, don't ban it, just maybe make sure, as long as there's adequate safety precautions in place and things like, I haven't got a problem with head guards and stuff like that, and as long as kids are being taught to do it properly, I think that's safer. And I think that's the thing that a lot of the pros would say as well, is that if you teach proper tackling technique, you do make it safer. So the quicker and the earlier that the kids can learn to take a tackle, to execute one, and work within the risk assessments and the parameters that exist for youth coaching and stuff like that, then the better, really, for me. So no, I wouldn't ban it.
See, I mean, obviously the question you asked was quite straightforward, like yes or no.
Yeah.
There's obviously
there is nuance to it, of course.
But I sided on the ban it.
Right.
I'm going to explain why. I don't think it should be banned from young people learning how to tackle.
Okay.
I don't think it should necessarily be banned from kids at school learning how to tackle. But in terms of having full contact, full tackling in games, in schools, I do think it should be banned.
Right.
Or at least curtailed to a massive degree, that they're not actually doing the full tackling on each other in the game situations. This is my thinking on it, okay? I would never stop kids who go along to a rugby training club in a rugby club with rugby qualified coaches teaching them how to tackle.
Yes.
But when you've got a PE teacher who might not necessarily be properly qualified for in rugby coaching qualifications, certainly. Showing a kid how to tackle, they might show them how to do it wrong, or they might not pick up on when a kid's got a technical flaw that's actually putting himself in more danger than not. I also think the big physical contact part of the game is probably what puts some kids off at an early age. It probably would have put me off. We didn't play it in schools in where I grew up, but it probably would have put me off as a skinny kid if I had to run against the big kids, and they could tackle you.
True.
And so I wouldn't want to play. I'd choose a softer contact sport, which can be equally as dangerous if things go wrong. But I know that I wouldn't end every single time I played the game with bruises and bumps and feeling sore, which I would do if some of the quicker to develop kids took on the skinny little run that I was, and saw me to the floor, sort of thing. So it stops people getting engaged in the game, where there might be a kid who has all the skill, all the flair, all the ability, but is scared of getting hurt. So doesn't play the game at school, or doesn't feel like encouraged from playing the game because there's just a big lad at school who's actually fucking shit at rugby, but can smack someone out, who gets put in the rugby team because he's going to smack out the little kid on the other school's team, and you'll win and you'll look good. Well, that's not teaching kids how to embrace sport, how to get involved in sport. And actually what I'd want these to do is have the kid like rugby, learn all the skills at school that he needs to learn, but maybe then wait till there's a bit more bigger developed to actually go and play at a rugby club when he feels confident physically. But you can still teach him, you can still have tackle bags, you can still have tackling lessons, but you don't have them running into each other constantly. That's the way I see it. So in competitive match rugby, I would ban it up to an age of, say, 15, 16, where you'd expect the physical maturity
within a school environment.
Within a school environment,
if the lads were so inclined and so into rugby that they went and play for a local amateur side as well,
then you're under 11s, 12s, 13s, whatever, full contact all the way from high school age for me. That's my take.
That's a very reasonable way of looking at it, Mark. We did get a lot of feedback and comments from people, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. David Pye goes first. He says, lots of posts about the apparent request to ban contact rugby from schools. I agree, not necessarily from a safety view, but from a development view. All too often, the team with the biggest kids wins, especially in ages 7 to 11, when no skills really required. This stops the development of technical skills, puts off players from joining, as it's not nice being run over by someone twice your size, and limits creativity. So he's kind of touched on both our points, really.
Yes.
He says, when everyone catches the big kid up, they often crow out. So who has this benefited? So many amateur coaches train aggression and big hits and pay little attention to the other aspects of a rugby league player. Is it any wonder we create good packs in England but have a limited creative players? If we can reduce contact at early stages, it would stop coaches teaching aggression and running over people only to enable other skills to develop. I'd like to see us also teach the coaches.
Fair enough. Scott Lister also got in touch, and he said that he'd seen fans' reaction to this, some saying it's health and safety gone mad, everyone's going soft, what a joke. But there's a film that came out this year called Concussion, based on a true story where the lead actor is played by Will Smith, the actor, not the fullback at Penrith. It's very good and very insightful. Now, Scott's view on this is that a ban on tackling would be taking it too far. The problem is at school age you don't know how to tackle, you have to be taught it from nothing, and mistakes happen. Even professionals who played it for years still get it wrong sometimes, but schools don't have to wear shoulder pads, gum shields or scrum hats, and on top of that their bodies haven't matured enough and are still growing, so safety is important, especially when learning something new. I would not ban tackling, but I would make it mandatory that all kids up to 21 must wear correct protective clothing before being allowed to play.
Yeah, I agree with the
high number.
sensibility with
21.
that. 21 though, you've got professionals at 21. I would probably...
John Bateman was in the Bulls first team at 17.
I would probably say up to leaving high school at 16. But yeah, other than that, I definitely agree with the sentiment. On concussion, it's actually... It does a terrible Nigerian accent in it, doesn't it? I've not seen the whole film, I've only seen bits. But it's actually... The guy he first diagnosed with this condition was a Pittsburgh Steelers player called Mike Webster. He was one of the... I don't know if this is how the film follows it, but I know the story of this doctor, this particular doctor, diagnose this particular type of traumatic brain condition.